Hello, Reader Babes. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for finding me. I'm so happy to have you here. And I'm so happy to be here. I haven't made a YouTube video in a while because my exams have been coming for my neck. But I have a small break, so let's do my favourite thing and talk about some books. So in this video, I wanted to talk about all the books I've read recently. I don't know what I'm going to title it yet. But yeah, I think just to catch you guys up on all the books that I've read and my opinions on them. It's not been great, I'm not going to lie. I haven't had the most successful reading months. But I've also been depressed, so it kind of ties in. Okay, so let's jump into the books. Okay, let's talk about the first book of the month that I read, which is Funny Story. I'll put a picture here. I don't have a physical version because I'm proud of myself. Because every time a new book comes out that I want it, I just buy the hardback because I'm like, oh, the paperback isn't going to be released for a year. But I said no. Do you see hardbacks on that shelf? Barely. There's just no point. So I'm waiting until the physical version arrives. So Funny Story, Emily Henry, that's the first book that I read this month. And I was very excited for it because I've been on a Emily Henry catch-up game this year. I've read, I think, almost all her books. And I've had very, very positive opinions, 4 or 5 stars for most of them, I believe. But Funny Story just didn't do it for me. It didn't do it for me. This book was about a girl who's engaged. This isn't a spoiler. This is like first 2 minutes, by the way. But yeah, she's engaged and he breaks it off to go and date his childhood best friend, his girl best friend. And yeah, her boyfriend, so the childhood best friend's boyfriend, I'm not explaining this well, am I? Basically, their exes get together. They dump them for them. They both get dumped. And then she has nowhere to live, so she moves in with the boyfriend of the other girl. I hope you're getting this. Should I start again? She's dating a guy. She's engaged to the guy. He leaves her for his childhood best friend, who leaves her boyfriend. And then she, an initial girl, moves in with the boyfriend because she's got nowhere to live. Hopefully that makes more sense. I'm sorry. I'm not very good at this, am I? Anyway, so they move in together and it's a romance book, so I don't know what you want me to tell you, but I didn't like it that much. I didn't really buy it. I felt like, would they have gone for each other if this didn't happen? I know that's not always the best way to look at things when it comes to books, but I just felt like the romance was lacking a little bit. I do feel like the male main character just wasn't it for me. Like, I don't think you need to be attracted to all the guys that you read about, but it helps. And I wasn't. So, I don't know. It just wasn't it for me. It just didn't hit for me. It was okay. I gave it 3 stars. No, that's a lie. I gave it a 2.5 stars because it was just bang in the middle. It was just a very average book, in my opinion. Don't hate me, don't kill me, I'm sorry. But it just wasn't my favourite book. So yeah, that's Funny Story by Emily Henry. The next book I read, guys, I read this book in one day. One sitting, I read this book. It was so good. I read Carrie Soto Is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've been wanting to read all her books because before this, I read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six, and I thought they were just amazing, such good books. So I was like, okay, clearly she's on it. So I was like, let me read Carrie Soto Is Back. It is so good. This is a story about a tennis player. She's a bit older for a tennis player, that is. I think she's 37, so she's retired at this point, and she's sitting at a tennis match, and she's just watched somebody break her world record. They've now got... No, not break her world record, meet her world record. So let's just say, I can't remember if I'm being honest, but let's just say she's got like 18 Grand Slams. I don't know if that's out of pocket and that's just like too big, but she's got a lot of Grand Slams and someone else has just met her and got an 18 Grand Slam. So she's like, okay, I'm coming out of retirement and I'm going to defend my title. And that's where we are in this book. And then whilst we're in the book, we're watching her past, her relationship with her dad, who's also her coach. And it's just so good, so wholesome. She's not the most likable character. I liked her personally. I felt like, apart from one thing, I don't think she was in the wrong for most of the book. I really liked her, but even if you didn't like her to begin with, I think you'll like her towards the end. I think she's just a misunderstood character, but oh my gosh, is she competitive? And I'm quite competitive, so maybe that's why I relate. But this book was so good. It was so gripping. I literally, when I was reading it, I was feeling like I was in a tennis match, like just watching it go back and forth. It was so good that when my sister travelled to Canada this year, I asked her to pick me up the American version. To my American subscribers out there, if I have American subscribers, that'd be awkward. Are all your books this fat? Look at this compared to this. Is this the norm? I didn't know you guys had big boys like that. I wouldn't be able to fit anything on my shelf. I don't know. I thought that was crazy, but I do think that the American cover is just, look at it, it's gold. It's pretty. I like this cover more, so I asked my sister to get it for me and she did. I love you so much, John, thanks. But yeah, This book was amazing. I was going to say 5 stars. That's a dirty lie. It's a 6-star read. It's honestly one of my favourite books I've ever read in my life. 10 out of 10. Amazing. Chef's kiss. Flowers upon flowers upon flowers. It was just, I read it in one sitting, that will tell you. I think there's probably like 3 books in my whole life that I've done that for. I just couldn't put it down. It was just so good. So good. It was so good. I loved it. I loved it so much. If you haven't read this book, I really recommend it, especially if you've read like Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo or Daisy Jones, which are, I think, a bit more popular than this one. If you've read them, then I don't know why you wouldn't love this one. Just try it out for me, please. Thank you. Okay, next. These are books I've been putting off for a while. So Kennedy Ryan is a very popular author and everyone seems to love her books. So I tried out her Hoop series, which is a basketball series. They're all romance books though, so even if you're not into sports, that doesn't mean you can't enjoy the books. But I personally, it wasn't my favourite. The first one was very good, well written, amazingly written, but very, very deep. So like all the trigger warnings in the world, domestic violence, all of the above. Like, so if that's not for you, then I definitely wouldn't recommend you read that. It's very heartbreaking. The second book, I hated everybody apart from one character, but the main characters, I hated them. So it was never going to be for me. And the third book, I found it a bit boring and I DNF'd it. So I was a bit like, I'm not getting the hype. But her next series, which I don't know what this series is called. I don't know, but her next series has been getting a lot of hype as well. So I was like, let me finally try and pick it up. So the first book in the series is Before I Let Go, and I did like it a lot. I gave it 4 stars. This is about a couple who is divorced. They divorced because something tragic happened in their family and they couldn't stop arguing, basically. And in this book, we're finding how they're navigating co-parenting, running a business together, etc., etc. And it was good. I liked it. I will say, I don't know, I listened to this in audiobook, by the way. It was a bit cringe at some points. Like, you know, books which are like, maybe it's because I was listening to it rather than reading it. If I was reading it, it might not have stood out so much. But you know when they're like, yeah, girl, I don't know. For me, it was just a bit cringy. It was a bit cringy. That's probably one of the reasons why it wouldn't have been a 5-star, because it happened a lot. I don't know, the writing style was just a bit cringe for me, but the story was good. The connection was great. And I really, really enjoyed it. So 4 stars, and I'm very, very happy that I picked it up. And then I basically went straight into the next book in the series, which is This Could Be Us. This one, though. This one hit. This one was so good. This was a 5 stars for me. I loved this book. I want to tell you the plot. I don't want it to be like a spoiler. Basically, this woman, she was married, or she is married when we meet her. We actually meet her in this book, by the way. So they're interconnected. So I would definitely recommend reading this book first and then going on to this one. But she is married when we meet her. Something happens. It's really juicy. Like, it's like, yes, it's a romance, but it's also like, oh my gosh, drama. So I would recommend it for that alone. Something happens within her family, and then has a new connection, and that's basically all I want to say, because it's juicy. I liked it. I went in blind, so I recommend you to go in blind as well. But oh my gosh, the connection in this book was top tier. And as I've said, like, it was just, without the romance, I feel like just her discovering herself and learning about herself and just taking care of her family was interesting enough. Like, even if this wasn't a romance book, I think I would have absolutely adored this book. So This Could Be Us, I preferred it a lot more. So amazing book. I definitely would recommend this series. In the first book, we meet the main character and her 2 best friends. So this is the first bestie, second bestie. So I know that there's going to be a 3rd book in this series, and I'm guessing that's where this series will tie up. And I'm interested to know how the 3rd character is going to fly up, because she's a bit of a different character. So I'm interested in that. So I don't know when that's coming out, but hopefully next year. So hopefully I'll add that to my 2025 books I'm excited for. I can't speak today. The next book I read was Clockwork Angels in the Shadowhunter series by Cassandra Clare. I think I read the initial Shadowhunter series when I was like 13 or something. I think I did, because my sister was telling me, oh my gosh, they made a series out of that book you used to read. But I don't remember reading it. But let's just go with it. So I think I read that initially, but I didn't finish the series. I think I literally only read the first book. And I know this isn't the first book in the series, but it's like the first book in the timeline order. So apparently you don't need to read the other books. But I saw on TikTok, someone was like, oh my gosh, this is my favourite fantasy series in the world. The romance is amazing. Everything is so good. It's better than ACOTAR. And I enjoyed ACOTAR. So I was like, oh, let me pick this up. Guys, it didn't hit for me at all. But I'm not sure if it didn't hit because I listened to audiobook. I think maybe you're getting a theme. Because I was studying the last few months, Like only when I was like going on runs or in the car was I reading books. So all the pretty much, not every single one, but most of these books that I read this month were audiobooks. And the narrator was not good at all. So I'm not sure if I want to try it again and if the narrator clouded my judgment, because I didn't enjoy this book even a little bit. So I don't know if you're aware of the Shadowhunter series, but it's basically, I don't know why I'm acting like I'm good at explaining, but we're basically in a world where there's shadow hunters and they fight demons and basically non-humans but have power things. That's who they fight. And this is based in London, and we basically meet a girl who's looking for her brother. That's all I want to say, because that's all I really understand. I didn't connect to any of the characters. I didn't connect to the story. It just wasn't for me. But then I'm also like, oh, the narrator was just not good. And I forced myself to finish listening to it because I spent an Audible credit. I don't know. I gave it 2 stars because I feel like 1 is like, oh my gosh, it was so bad, I'm offended. That's my rating system. So I felt like I couldn't give it a 1, but I didn't enjoy it. I don't know. I really don't know about that one. Yeah, I don't know. I might give it another chance because I've heard that the series as a whole is fantastic. Like everyone who I've seen review this series is like 6-star series, top star series. Like, I want to be in the loop. But this one just didn't hit it for me. But yeah. The next book I read was Leather and Lark. And this is the next book in the, what is the series called? The Ruinous Love Trilogy. The first book was Butcher and Blackbird, which I read in, I think, October last year. Basically when it came out, I think. And I loved that book. It was very, very dark but entertaining, and the connection between the 2 characters was cute, and I enjoyed it. This book, I hated it so much. I really disliked it. I just felt like it made no sense. The way that they got together. I'm really trying my best to not spoil this book, but basically, in this book we follow her best friend, so the girl in the first book's best friend, and his brother, so the guy in the first book's brother, and they basically get together. They have an arranged marriage, pretty much because she's trying to avoid some trouble. And I just felt like them getting together made no sense. Like, I don't know, I just feel like some days people need to just turn on the light switch. Like, maybe talk to people. I don't know, maybe seek counsel rather than being like, okay, let's get married. It just, for me, if you've read this book, then maybe you get what I mean, but I'm trying not to like spill the plot. And then also in this book, just like most books where there's like serial killers and threatening people and blah 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 blah, there's somebody out to get them, and I just felt like the person out to get them, it didn't make sense. The plot wasn't plotting, the romance wasn't romancing, the book wasn't booking. I just disliked everything about it. But once again, the book didn't offend me in any way, so I can't give it a 1 star. So it was a 2 star. I didn't enjoy it at all. It was kind of painful to get through, if I'm being completely honest, and I'm upset because this was in my video where I was like, all the books that I'm really excited for, my anticipated books for 2024. So I was very excited for this, and it was just nothing but sadness. Yeah. The next book that was my alarm, my cake's ready, but this is more important. Okay, so the next book I read was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Oh yeah, Carrie Soto, the same author. Clearly I'm enjoying her books. So I read this book next, and once again I read this on audiobook. I didn't read Leather and Lark on audiobook, by the way. I don't know why I'm updating you whether it was audiobook or not, but it wasn't. So I read Malibu Rising, or I listened to Malibu Rising, and I've heard a lot of people say that out of Taylor Jenkins Reid's book, this isn't like the up there one. This isn't one of the most favourite ones. So I kind of went into it thinking, okay, it's not going to be as like, I don't want to say action packed, but not as entertaining as maybe some of the other ones. I disagree. I loved it. I loved it so much. In this book, we're actually following a family. We're following a family of 4 siblings, and they have... I don't want to ruin it. We're following a family of 4 siblings. They're all relatively successful. They're quite popular, and every year they throw a party. And this year, the party turns into a bit of a mess. And it was just so entertaining. The characters that you get to know them so well, and you feel such like a connection towards them. I don't know. It wasn't as like drama filled as the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I wouldn't say that you get into as depth in the characters as like Carrie Soto's back, because that's just one character, but it was still great. It was still super interesting. The characters were great to read about. You really feel for these characters, some of them at least. It was so entertaining. It was just so entertaining. It was very wholesome. They're like a family that really rides for each other, and I just loved reading about it. It was still drama filled, action packed. I loved it. I really loved it. It was a 5 stars for me. I was thinking, oh, maybe it's a 4 stars. But then after I read the book, I just couldn't get it out of my head. I couldn't get the characters out of my head. So I definitely loved it. So yeah, basically based in Malibu, family, and they throw a party every single year. And we're also going back in time to like their upbringing, etc., etc. And it was great. It was so good. Recommend for sure. For sure. 5 stars for me. The next book I read, this is like an up and down month. I feel like I'm like, oh my gosh, I loved it. Oh my gosh, I hated it. Oh my gosh, I loved it. I hated it. I hated it. This is Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. This author, Ali Hazelwood, writes STEM romances. So I haven't read her first book, which is really what's the word I'm looking for? Popular, which is The Love Hypothesis. I haven't read that yet, but I have read Love Theoretically, and I hated the first half, but I enjoyed the second half. So overall, it was like an average, like 3.5 stars. Good book. And then I read Bride, which is her first paranormal romance, and I loved that book. That book was just so fun, so different. I loved it. She should do more of that and less of this. And this is another STEM romance, and I was like, all right, Love Theoretically wasn't bad. Bride was great, so let me try this one. This book was all smart, no plot. All smart, no plot. No romance, no connection. Why? Why? Why would you do this? Like, your books are entertaining usually. Like, why would you do this to me? This book is about a girl. She works for a company, and he works for the company that's trying to take over her company. But before that, they met on one night and connected. And then she walks into the office next day and she's like, oh my gosh, he's here. And then we basically follow it from there. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. Not even a little bit. But once again, it didn't offend me. So 2 stars. Hey guys, so I read a science fiction book. A whole me, I know. Shock of the world. But I did. So yeah, it's called Project Hail Mary. I don't have the physical, but I should definitely buy that because I loved it. That was a spoiler. I should have waited until the end. I should have taken you on a journey of the book and then told you I loved it. Anyway, we're here now. It was so good. It's basically about the world is coming to an end, right? Basically, because there is the sun that's losing heat. I hope I'm explaining this well. But the sun is losing heat. So they basically get science people to fix the problem, and they ship them off into space to fix the problem. But when they're in space, they find things that are interesting. I promise the book is more interesting than I'm making it seem. It's so good. It's so interesting. And this is from someone who only reads romance and a bit of fantasy. But I found it entertaining. So I promise you'll like it. It's so good. It was a 5-star. I was gripped from beginning to end. I even forced my boyfriend to start reading it. And he doesn't read books. So that tells you a lot. It was so good. It was fantastic. 5 stars. So absolutely loved it. Definitely would recommend. The next book I read was Summer Romance. This is the first book I've read by this author. And I think I saw somebody recommend it on YouTube. So I thought I'd try it out. And I'm very, very happy I did. It's basically what the title is. This is a book about a romance that took place over summer, and it was fantastic. It was very, very cute, very, very wholesome. I loved the story. This is basically about a single mother. She's recently going through a divorce, and she makes a connection with somebody, and this is her balancing raising kids, finding somebody, putting herself first. She's also lost her mum recently, so it's a little bit about grief. Great book, super wholesome, super cute. I don't have much to say on it. It's just a book that if you want a wholesome summer book, it's still August, so you got time. I would recommend it. I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed reading it a lot. And the final book that I have read in this 3-month period is Play Along, which is the 4th book in the Windy City series. And if you know me, you know I love this series. It is so good. This book is about Isaiah, who is Kai's brother. So book 3 was about Kai, and book 4 is about Isaiah. And basically, baseball again. If you're not aware, the Windy City series, they basically follow athletes. So all the guys are athletes, and we follow their love stories. So the first book was hockey, then basketball, then baseball, and this is another baseball book. And he basically is obsessed with his team's physiotherapist. I think that's her title. And one day, this is basically not spoiled, but this is told in the 3rd book, by the way. So this isn't a spoiler. This is what we know going into 4th book. But they basically get drunk one night in Vegas, and they get married accidentally, drunkenly, and they forget by the time they wake up, and we're following their romance from there. It was good. It was wholesome. It was everything I needed. Like, I feel like a lot of these books that I've talked about this video have been absolute rubbish and have really, really pissed me off. So I feel like I needed a win here, and I'm so happy that it delivered, because I feel like all the books that I've been like anticipated, like waiting for, like pre-ordered on Amazon, have sucked. So I'm so glad this didn't suck. So this was great. This was 5 stars for me. I loved it. And I don't know who told me previously that this was going to be the last book in the series, and I was angry because Rio hasn't been addressed. Rio hasn't gotten a book yet, but Liz fixed that. Rio is going to have the next book, so there's going to be another book, a final book, 5th book in the series, and that's going to be Rio. And I've been waiting for Rio's book since book 1, so I'm happy now. But yeah, that was everything. That was all the books that I read in the month of... You can tell I'm used to doing monthly wrap-ups. That's all the books I read in the last 3 months, and as you can see, it's been up and down. I feel like if it wasn't a 5-star, it was like a 2-star. Like, there was really barely any in-betweens, but that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. I did DNF one book this month that I was really looking forward to, which is so sad because this book was like a 6-star read for me. The previous book, sorry, by this author. I loved The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. It was so good. And I started to read a novel love story, which was her release from this year. I think I started to read it last month or something like that. And I just could not get into it. Like, I think I DNF'd it. I think my Kindle's at 25%. I just could not get into it. It's about a girl who basically finds herself in her favourite romance book, which I think concept-wise, amazing, but execution-wise, not good at all. So that was really disappointing. I can't rate it because I didn't finish it, but I watched quite a few of my favourite YouTubers wrap-ups, and it's kind of consistent. I haven't really found somebody who loved the book, so so that was upsetting. Another book that I DNF'd this month was... Hello, future editing me here. I remembered the other book that I DNF'd. I don't know if this is a hard DNF, like I might pick it up because I'm so far into it, but this is Reckless. The first book in the series was Powerless. This is by Lauren Roberts, and that book was fun. It was cute, it was fun, very unoriginal if I'm being completely honest, like very Hunger Games, very tropes you've seen before, but it was fun, it was a good time, and the ending was quite dramatic, so I was really excited to pick this book up. This is the next book in the series, and it got released... April is the month that's coming to me, I think, in April, something around there. So I picked it up, and oh my gosh, like I want to say 55% of the way through this book. Nothing has happened. The same story. It's like a cat and mouse game. It's just being repeated and repeated and repeated. I'm so bored out of my mind. But I've heard some people say that the ending is quite dramatic, and obviously there's going to be another book, so I'm not sure. I'm one to usually just be like, I'm done, you're not holding my attention, I'm over it, but because I've come so far, I might wrap this up quickly. But yeah, that's my other DNF. As of right now, it's a DNF, so I don't know. But yeah, back to the video. As I've said, this month has been very up and down. I feel like usually I have more 4 or 5 stars because I only really read books that I think I'm going to like, and I DNF books as soon as I feel like it's not going to be a 1. But I don't know, I think because some of them are like anticipated reads, I wanted to see it through to the end, and I should not have. But yeah, that was all the books that I read in the month of May, June and July, I think. So yes, hopefully we'll be back to normal programming. I have a few video ideas, so hopefully I keep myself accountable and you'll be seeing more of me. But yes, so glad to be back on YouTube. Thank you so much if you've gotten to the end of this video. I'm very, very grateful. So yeah, hopefully see you next time.